Let's get right into this review for Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Infinity Castle. Alright, so this animation film is directed by Haruo Sotozaki. He was also the director behind the very successful Demon Slayer Mugen Train, which I believe was the first official worldwide theatrical release presented for this animation series. And now with this latest film, Infinity Castle, this marks a huge turning point in the main story of Demon Slayer, which is being ramped up for the grand finale clash between the Demon Slayers and the demons. So it goes without saying that there's been a lot of anticipation and hype surrounding the film right now, especially amongst the fans who stuck with the show since the beginning. This is undoubtedly reminiscent of the hype I've seen for Avengers Infinity War when it first released at the theaters. Everything has been steadily brewing up for this very moment, that being the start of the final clash, which is what the Infinity Castle arc is all about. Now it goes without saying that if you've been keeping up with this series up until this point, all that knowledge and lore will help to create more emotional depth and fundamental connections to the gargantuan stakes at hand, as well as for the general story presentation here. But I can honestly see this being a really fun roller coaster of a ride, even for those who aren't familiar with this series. There is stuff you're going to be able to pick up on and deduce as a newcomer, and really the core of this cinematic experience takes you on plenty of exhilarating fight sequences and emotional drama, all paired up with beautiful animations from beginning to end, which is already going to be more than enough to satisfy majority of the viewers, both original and new fans alike. And it's important to note that this film is the first out of the 3 parts to come out, so expect parts 2 and 3 before this grand finale of Demon Slayer officially concludes, which should come out within the next 5 to 6 years or so. And yeah, I honestly don't have much negatives to say about this cinematic experience, so let's go over some of the key positives instead. First and foremost, the voice acting here is phenomenal. A lot of the emotional impact and depth for these animation stories and the characters involved heavily rely on the voice acting to carry a lot of that weight to push the story forward. And I think the entire voice acting cast goes above and beyond to hit home runs within all the pivotal story beats here. Not only that, but the overall soundscape here is absolutely amazing. Everything about the soundscape pairs so well on the big screen. So kudos to the sound department and everything they've contributed so far. Also, the art department for this animation continues to go above and beyond. Demon Slayer is such a beautiful visual spectacle almost each step of the way. Nothing ever comes across as cheap here. Everything is fluid, so concise and sharp within each frame of the animation, highlighting the beauty and the chaos within each art shown throughout this 2-hour and 35-minute runtime. So kudos to Ufotable and everyone involved in the art and animation department. This was crazy eye candy all throughout the acts. And although this is just the beginning of the end to the Demon Slayer story, I still thought the story presentation here was incredibly well-rounded to stand well enough on its own, and I was completely satisfied with what I witnessed, even with some of the unfinished segments and cliffhangers involved. This got me pretty ecstatic to see where the story goes next, but I was well enough satisfied with my time in Act 1 to be patient enough until the next part arrives. My final score for Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Infinity Castle is 9.5 out of 10. I honestly don't think a heavily action-based animation story can get more well-rounded than the cinematic package you get here. This film is going to be able to stand the test of time, and it's going to be a very fun, wild ride for the next several years or so until the story concludes. Anyway, since we're checking this review out, I'll have one more coming out this week, so stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I shall see you on the next upload. Until then, stay safe out there, and peace.